Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you're watching this. This is Aiden J. Just going to show you guys how to, in no particular rush, no level of skill really, how to do an elite puzzle casket. Now they're very simple, really. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. You've got 24 pieces on the board, and there's 25 squares. So very simply, you can either use the keyboard arrows or you can use your mouse just to click the pieces. Wherever the empty square is, that's where the piece will move. Likewise, so if I click here on this piece, it will move to the right. If I click here, it will move to the left. Wherever the empty cell is, it will move into that spot. So obviously you have a hint here. Now, without using a puzzle skipping ticket, what you can do is very simply, you can hover over this, get an idea for it. Obviously you can keep going back to that, and then get an idea for where each piece is. So in this one, obviously this is the complete version. What we can see is in the top left hand corner we have obviously the sort of like curved thing with the little blue gap thing in the bottom, and we have the fist next to it. And just under one, now the one in the very top left corner, underneath that cell, there's like a sort of like a shaped triangle thing. What we're going to do is we're going to look for that in this jumble, and we're going to try and get those into that piece. So we know that we're working with 3 pieces. So the first piece we're looking for is, if we look for the fist with the thumb, and that's there where the cursor is, what we're going to do is we're going to try and get that piece over there to where it is on here, obviously, which is in the top left to the right. So if we were to call that, let's say the top row is A, the second row is B, ascending all the way down to C, D, E. If we're going to look at A2, which would be where the cursor is now, this is the piece A2, we want A2 to go there where this face is. So what we're going to do is we're going to move this one, this green one here, we're just going to move any random one around till we get that piece in that spot. So right now what we have is we have the piece A2 in the cell A2, so that's what we want. Now the problem with that is you still have to get this piece here, which would be B1, and you still have to get this piece here, which would be A1, into their respective places. So what you could easily do is move this one here, but then what you do by doing that is you then move that out of A2. Now there's no real way to keep that in that spot, so you just have to accept it and move it back afterwards. That's part of the challenge. So if we move this piece and we move this one up, we now have A1 in the correct space. We then move this one here, this one here, this one here, this one here, so on, so on, so on, like this. Boom, that one's in the second place. Move that one down, that one's in the correct place. So it's very simple, just by moving them around and thinking logically, right, okay, how would I get one piece to the other, right, without disrupting the entire thing? Well, you're going to have to break it anyway. It's like a Rubik's Cube, you have to break a side to complete it. Likewise, you have to do it and repeat it until it's done. So that's the first thing. Now, let's have a look at the other cells on the board. So the other, in terms of what we have, obviously, we forget about the A and the B and the C row at the moment. We then obviously got the D and the E row. Now, these rows come in time, likewise with the A and Bs. Normally, I start with the top. The reason being is because if you start with the top, it makes it a lot easier. Because if you work downwards, methodically and logically, you'll get it completed. Because once the top is completed, you don't need to touch that part of the board. If, for example, you had every piece of the board complete, but you had A1 in D4, it's an issue because you have to break the entire puzzle just to get those 2 pieces together. And once you get one in one slot, you then have the issue of the piece that you wanted to move is in a different place to where it needs to be. So when that happens, you then have to keep repeating that process, and that is when it can get frustrating, and that's when eventually you either skip it or just destroy it because it just gets annoying. So the way you prevent that from happening is work in a method that suits you. Now you can work upwards, but that is a bit more difficult, and I'm not going to do that because that takes a lot longer and it is a lot harder for me. But what I am going to do is I'm going to work downwards. So I'm going to look at this, just hold the hint over, and I'm just going to get an idea. So we sort of need, we want to see for the cells A3, A4 and A5, I want to get those pieces in the correct place. So what I want to see, first of all, is if I look at this piece here, when the jumbled up version would be B4, on the actual completed puzzle, that's B5. So if I were to get that piece into B5, that's already fixed, that part of it. Then what I need to do is I want to look for the piece above that, so A5. On the jumbled version, it's in A2. To get it to A5 on the completed version, I'm going to need to break this puzzle apart. So already I've destroyed or disturbed the B5 piece. I'm going to put A5 in B5's place, move this piece down, this piece up likewise, and I'm going to move that piece up. That piece is now in A5. That piece can stay there, okay, it doesn't need to move. What I also want to do is I want to get A4 and possibly even A3 in the correct places. So what I am going to do is I'm going to move those two like that, and this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a really useful trick, which I really suggest you implement if you want to continue doing these. And what this trick is effectively you move one piece into its in a purposely incorrect area to then get the piece you want in its correct place. So watch this. What we do is we stack them on top of each other, and boom, we now have this piece in the correct place. Okay, that piece doesn't now need to move, but it might have to. We now move this into this and this like this, and then what we're going to do is very simply we need to get this piece, which on the completed version, what's that, sort of like a shaped weird thing, that piece would be, wow, that piece is D1, so we want to get D1 out of there. So we're going to move D1 really far away, okay. We might even end up moving him, sometimes you'll end up moving them into the correct place just because it makes your life easier, okay. But you see, I didn't disrupt this, although I had to, it's still back in the order it was. So forget about that. If we look at the completed board, look what's happened. We've now got 1, 2, 3, A1, sorry, A3, A4 and A5 all in the correct place, and B5 is in the correct place. So now what we need to do is we need to fix these three here. We want to fix B2, B3 and B4. So how do we go about doing that? Well, very simply, locate the pieces. Once you've located the pieces, this would be B4. And when I can find B5, this is a complicated puzzle, which I've now done. There we go. We found it. So what we now need to do is we need to look at this puzzle again. We've got B3, B4 and B5 in the correct place. We have B1. We just need B2 now. This is B2. To get B2 into its correct place, we need to do that trick again. So we need to put B1 in its correct place, and we need to put B2 in the correct place of C1. Work out which piece C1 is. That's this piece here. What we're going to do is we're going to move B2 on top of C1, C1 down to here, like this. Then we're going to move the puzzle about, and we're going to get these pieces in the correct place. And we will have to disturb this part of the puzzle, but what we won't have to do is we won't have to worry, because these two rows are now complete, and if we check, they are now complete. What we can now do is we can now start finishing the bottom half of the puzzle, or the middle row, onwards. The middle row can be quite notorious because obviously it's the row that obviously separates the top from the bottom. That's obvious. The only issue with this one is sometimes the pieces are all over the shop. So what we're going to do is look at it. We have some sort of like this thing here. We know that's going to be C1. We know that's going to be C2. Where's C3? That's a sort of like weird bit with something coming off the side. That's that bit here. It's actually touching that. So we want to look for that one, which is that by the look of it. So if we move C3 and we get C3 into position, we're then left with that. So C1, C2 and C3 are now all correct. Now let's look for C4. Move C3 into C4. Move C5 into its correct place. Move C4 into its correct place. Move these ones up. And I'm going to show you why do that, because despite us having to jumble it up, we can easily fix it. We realize this is not in the correct place, so what we're going to do is we're going to move this. There we go. That's now correct, and that's now correct. Okay, so there we go. We have that fixed. Always make sure that you get the correct piece. Like this one, for example, C3. I thought that was C3. That's not C3. That's actually D2. We had D2 in the C3 place because they look similar. So what we're going to do now is we're going to work on the bottom part. So we're going to start with the D row. Now we need to look for the sort of this underarm here. So that bit goes there. That's fine. Then this piece will slide there. Now we need a bit that goes there. That's that bit. D3 is there. So we move those two there. Boom. Now the dilemma you're going to have is you need to get this piece, which is in E1, over to D4. So disrupt the puzzle. but always make sure you can go back to it. Okay. There we go. Now we need this piece. We need the piece that's in technically E5 to go to. We need the piece in E5 to go to D5. Move D4 down. Move D3 into D4. And there we go. Now this can be confusing, but it's not. Because all you have to do is you just have to think, right, I want to get a piece into that area. I will get that piece into this area. How am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to move them around and it's going to work. So now what we're left with is we have this partially completed, but not fully. So if you now move those two around, you've now got every row apart from the E row complete. Now, to complete the E row, what you need to do is you do need to disturb the D row a little bit. But you just need to move them around, give them a bit of a shuffle until you're confident in something. So, I think we may have just completed it. Oh, look, we did. It's very simple. Okay, it's just a case of you just have to think. Alright, you just have to think, alright, it's not difficult to do. Let's do this. Alright? Once you've done that, you get your casket. And what do we get? 271k. But we got a master clue, so that's useful, I guess. And that's it, everyone. That's as simple as it is. It doesn't get easier than that. Obviously, this was pretty bad, but I mean, I'll show other ones just to get an idea. But it is a case of just take your time. Okay, there's no rush, right? You can use a skipping ticket if you want, but I don't like to do that because it's a waste of your points. If save them for the tower skipping ones. Those ones are challenging. I didn't like those. I have done them, but they just annoy me. Okay, because I'm bad at maths and I'm bad at those sorts of things. But they are easy to do when you figure them out. You just have to do a couple. Okay, thank you very much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will be back with more videos soon.